And it's live. Is it? It is. Cool, it works. So hey bud, uh, we decided to do a live stream of our talk. This is Darius Visbaras. He's a theater producer, and he insisted that I pronounce theater as theater the whole podcast or live stream. And yeah, we have been friends for quite some while. We have went to the same school up to the middle school, I guess. And then we met up at university. Well, after university, actually.
Couple of years after.
Yeah. When I came to you begging to let me into your flat. Yeah, so the goal of this live stream is just two, on paper, really different people talking about things in life, how things are different. I'm an objective guy. I'm a data scientist, so I have to be objective, and I mostly interact with people who are developers and analytics, so people like myself. But on occasion, I talk with Darius about really philosophical things, I guess, and things that are a bit vague and subjective and more abstract. And yeah, I just wanted to talk how a synergy of more creative things and more objective things could bring a product at the end, which is a much more better product than just going the subjective route or objective route solely without interacting with each other. And we have a first viewer, who is Thomas. Hey dude. Yeah. Feels like talks in your kitchen. So yeah, as I said, Darius is a theater producer and he has his own theater now. And maybe you want to, introduce yourself, talk about your theater, talk about maybe the last project that you did, live stream performance, and how it went, how you got the idea, and maybe about the pandemic and how it influenced that project altogether.
Well, that's a lot of questions to start off. So we can maybe start in. Yes, I'm a theater producer. I work as one of the founders of Cosmos Theater, which is a visual experimental theater that seeks to find some new ways and approaches how to reach the audience throughout using the form of theater and maybe even demolish some of the barriers that are stereotypically onto the theater. Well, basically just to find new ways of artistic approach. So this is one of the core things. We started this company actually in 2012, and it was used to called as Baltic Chamber Opera Theater. But in the last couple of years, we did everything except operas, and we said that maybe it's a little bit silly to call ourselves an opera theater when we don't do operas. So this year on March 3rd, we rebranded the theater as a Cosmos Theater. And funny enough, next year we'll have probably a co-production with an opera house to build an opera. So it's funny, but we changed the name that we might have still work with operas. So this is one of the ways. So it was a fresh start. If we get back half a year ago to March, the pandemic was on the borders, and I just went back from Canada on March 10th, and boom, we rebranded the theater and we have a quarantine. What a lovely start for a theater when everything's closing down. So what we did with some of the fellas, some of the creators, such as Žilvinas Vingelis and other artists, we started to develop the idea of trying to make an online performance, but actually not performing something and then just filming it and streaming as more or less cinema or video perspective, but actually look for the form of how the online performance could be built, and actually look at the tools, what is happening, and actually build the performance for the platform. So we did this piece by Goddess Monetita, which we started developing, and everything was created from scratch during the first quarantine that we had in Lithuania. In around 6-7 weeks, we built it from the script, from unique dramaturgy to the full performance in 6-7 weeks. So just to get in the scale, if you're nothing familiar with the theater productions, usually only building the performance itself, not writing the scripts or looking at the dramaturgy, takes around half a year. So it was really quite a strong and tough schedule in a sense. But on the other hand, everyone was free because no one else was doing anything else. So it was like kind of a interesting approach to watch it towards it. So yeah, we did an online performance, and we streamed it. I think it was quite a good success. We got some really good reviews. But the funny part was that the quarantine ended, and then the summer came in, and then the actuality of the performance doesn't have so much sense when we can actually go out of our rooms. But what we did at the end of the summer, we participated in the contemporary art festival called Contempo, and we performed this performance lively in one of the Kaunas will be one of the cities in Lithuania, will be the culture of the capital of the culture. In 2022, and we did in their building, we did the performance that people could watch from the window how we were performing. They could see the live stream in their phones, and we also projected on the building. So it's also some like watching new ways of reaching the theater. And also one probably most important thing is that this performance is not only live streamed, but it's live performed. It's never a video that we just launch it. It's always a live performance. So that's what we try to do, and keep the theater thing that you never know if the performance will happen and will end, and you have the sense of this timeliness and fragility of the thing.
Yeah. So how new is the concept of live streaming an act on the internet?
On the internet, I think it's very rarely. When we built the performance, we couldn't even find examples of what's happening, because usually theater is more understood as a stage performance that the audience should participate physically in a way.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have so much sense to reach, in other ways, to find the internet as a reach. And even the pandemic showed that probably theaters are not really interested in going to the virtual platform, and they don't have so much content, because to be honest, they'll just film a performance. It's not interesting to watch it. I mean, if you're professional, maybe it's interesting to see, how is it built, how it's happening. Maybe if you're professional, to figure out the techniques of what's happening. But as an audience, why should you watch a performance video with one camera when you can just go to Netflix and watch, the content that's created for the video, itself?
Yeah, you just want to experience that emotion through the act, and not just watch some random story. And especially with your theater, which is, at least that act, which was like an utopian city in which people live in close quarters. And yeah, I guess I'll post a link. I don't really know if it's online and you can watch it not live, and I think you can't really.
We watch it live, but this year we're still going to show it at least 4 or 5 times.
Cool.
So it's in October we'll definitely show for like 3 or 4 times, and then it's come in December.
Yeah.
So there's good chances for people to see the performance. Yeah.
For those 5 people who will watch this, I'll leave a link to Cosmos Theater YouTube page, so you could get a notification when the next act is coming. So my question here is, how easy was it to adopt the live streaming of an act? So my guess is you usually still do live performances in theaters and churches and whatnot, and it's a physical place. And then you have this digital place where you still want to have a live interaction with the audience, you want to see them react, and at the same time, you want to express each character in its own light, and you have at the same limitless and limited space to that, because I don't know, like, just describe your experience in incorporating technology into that.
I think that the first question that should raise yourself, not only why you want to go digital, but for whom you also want to go digital.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the first reason why we went digital, because we didn't have any option. We had an option not to do anything because everything closed, or we had an option to create something, and virtual was the only way to actually do something.
Mm-hmm.
So that the reasons we couldn't stop creating ourselves, so it was an impact from ourselves to launch the things.
Mm-hmm.
But the second part is for whom you are trying to reach it. We have very different audiences, and we can have this, structures and trying to, demolish in different timelines or something. But the idea is that if you look at the audience, for example, if you are going to a small village, for a participant, for audience in there to participate good quality performances, is basically impossible, because for them to have a really experience of physical performance is very difficult, because they need to have an infrastructure.
Yeah.
Usually the better the performances, the better the infrastructure you need to have, and it's expensive, and the community itself won't be able to help it as an economically perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things, trying to find the tools how to reach the people who can participate. And installing internet is probably easier rather than having building an infrastructure for things. So that's one of the core things. And the second of the things is we have, I think, plenty of people who are also introverts, that they don't want to go to public spaces. You don't want to play the social game of going to the theater, saying hi and sitting to a random guy next to you.
Right.
Maybe you're physically not being capable of enjoying the things. Maybe you're better off being alone, but you still want to participate in these things. So these digital kind of things might connect you with things, and then if we're talking about the form, how you can virtually watching the performance, feel that it's, connecting to you. Of course, there's some of the tools, you can do. You can have the chats. You maybe have some interventions that the participants can join in with the camera, with the sounds, and that's an artistic tool. What you want to do, because the tools are up there. They're already there. It's just the question if artists are using them or not. So it's, from my perspective, it's looking more of why you're doing and whom you are doing. Because if you are saying that we want to, demolish and change the theater, I'm saying no, don't go virtual.
Yeah.
I enjoy going to the theater personally, to having the social acts. You see random people, some of them overdressed, some of them just going with the jeans and everything and just want to have a snack, and it's fine and actually interesting social act. And also then you have, this physical experience with the art. So this is fascinating in the sense. But there's plenty for them. You don't need to change anything. You won't, go and say, now sit down at your bed and watch a live performance. And says, no, it will never change the experience for me. But for someone who doesn't go to the theater, might be, this kind of a bridge to go and participate.
Yeah, but I guess this is the place where, not like opinion, but in the view kind of sense, our views diverge, because you're talking about the benefits of how the persons feel coming to the theater, coming into the social life, or how you could bring the same quality and make the people in a bit more remote areas enjoy the theater magic itself. And how I look at it is, you just digitalize a product, which is, well, your theater, and that lets you scale up your business, you know? So I guess the thing is that with almost all of the businesses out there, the biggest startups that we see is just taking some of our primary services that we have and then putting it on digital, and that solves the problem with scaling and operating the business, because you just have to need one quite some small company which can manage a huge business by streaming that service through a digital domain, because you can reach almost everyone by now, because pretty much everyone has internet, you know. So I think that's a great thing for theater, and I do agree that the live performances when you go to the theater itself are truly amazing. But the thing with the digital theater is pretty much anyone can turn it on, and the consumption of your product, I think, increased as well by just going digital. Especially in this time, like in the pandemic, you can't really go outside, but you still reach your customers in a way.
Yeah, I think that one of the things adding to that is more about, how do we look as a society, what culture and art has the space, where does it have the space, and what's the reason for it? Now there's a more liberal way in saying that, art is for everyone, and trying to find the forms that every single person in the community should have access to art itself. It doesn't mean that you need to have access to all the art at all the time, but to have at least some of the connections. And if you don't have the possibilities of physicality or something, that we need to find some form of reaching that. So I think that one of the questions, that one of the points, just to have the overall look of it. But second hand, scaling is not also the primary reason of happening of the content itself, because when you look at the way that you can go virtual, but doesn't mean that the product will have value when it's virtual.
Yeah, right.
Because, as I said, even with the performances, if I film the performance, that it's not actually transformed and transcended as looking how the audience will participate with the content that you are doing, it doesn't add any value for the audience, or adds a really small value, or maybe it's an average. But most of the time, at least from my opinion, what I saw in the first pandemic, that usually the theaters made more damage to themselves and to the image, because the quality of the content that they showed, the video quality, what they are doing, it's not, not reachable for us. Even now you can see I'm a little bit blurry. You can imagine watching a performance for 2 hours as a blurry scale of this, what's happening in the app.
Yeah.
You would say that theater just simply, sorry, sucks, and because it's bad, because I can't work with it. So it doesn't mean always, to having the scale. But on the second hand, if you're thinking of how to go virtual or digital and how to reach the forms, then it has value. For example, even now we're starting working with virtual reality, which is not only cinema, it's not only theater, because they have a lot of combinations where some of the technologies or artistic approaches that works in the theater works in virtual reality, and some of them works from the cinema. But sometimes, it's a mixture of the things. And also you have combination, adding animation and gamification in the sense. And these are also a way to transform and find new art forms in the self, which is totally virtual. You're not going to experience a live stream of a performances in virtual reality, because the technology, the content, everything is just too new to do these kind of ways. Maybe sometime in 20 years we'll be able, to just live stream a performance that you can lively participate. But anyways,
on the basic level, you actually can do a live stream performance on VR already. As you can see, I have one right there. Yeah. So Facebook has, I don't really remember the name of the app, but it's either venues or something similar to that, where you can just join up with a group of people and you can do stuff together. And you can separate people into different groups, as someone who is giving a presentation, an act, and someone who's watching it, and you kind of can interact with them. And there's also like VR chat, so just a bunch of people joining a chat room, so you I guess you
But I
could
mean,
simulate that, in a sense, like on the basic level. You could do an act in virtual reality in real time.
even talking about virtual performances, what most of the performances happened was basically people meeting on Zoom or I don't know, Google Meets or whatever, and talking with each other with some kind of a dramaturgy. But this is not theater in the sense
Right,
that
right,
that
right,
we
right. Yeah, yeah,
so also what's happening with VR. So I think that the idea is actually trying to form and trying to build the performance itself.
yeah.
That it's actually a performing act. It's not about, just I don't have anything, so basically my drama talking with each other. Of course, it's lovely that people are doing this kind of a sense, but it's not, for me, it's not enough.
Sure.
So maybe this basicality, sometimes it's better to wait and develop a little bit more to build it up in the sense.
But like, wouldn't you agree that pretty much with all the new things or innovations that you do, you still need to, start from the basic things, look into what are the basic things that I can do, right? And then just build on it, on top of it. So, as with VR or like live theater performances, I truly get that theater and, movies are a different industry, different category, and it's hard to go from movies to theater and from theater to movies in like a split of a second. Just switch to another one because it's a pandemic and now you need to stream your performances. But you still can start with something, like you guys did with your project. Like your performance basically is a Zoom call with different actors being as different characters in different little brackets. So,
Yeah,
but,
I mean, on the sense, it's of course you all the time you have some kind of structure.
yeah,
All the time you have a structure which more or less doesn't change or has a variety of changes, not so much when when you simplify the things. But at the end of the day, it happens. What's the flavor and what the spices that you add on to that.
right,
It's what's the image that you see from? Okay, it's a Zoom call, but what's the image? What do you see on the background? Is it
right,
actually stylized or not? What's the costumes? Everyone's on the same scale or not? What's about the makeup?
right.
Does
So,
it feel like in a character or not? The actor itself, how is he performing? Is he actually performing lively as a character, or is he reading a text from online because he can, he can see it? It's a lot of different things. What's happening with the music? Is it just like talking with us, or you hear the sound check?
sure,
All these little spices adds up. Is there any after effects on the videos that is happening? Is there interlinks between what? If there's four actors connected, do they all the time see each other, four of the actors, or they change?
right, right,
It's a lot of different spices that adds up to this kind of a feeling. It's the same, when you watch a performance, you don't see, if there's in the full piece of performance, you see 10 actors, that they're 10 characters. You don't see them 10 persons on the stage all the time. You don't
right.
see that the pornography is the same all the time. It's, it's a game that they're playing with this mystical kind of a thing. So I think this is the core point, finding, these spices and how can I a little bit fool the game,
Right.
add it
So,
up a little bit. Yeah.
essentially building an environment in which then you fulfill the scenario of your act. So, just
Yeah.
yeah, I
No.
totally get it. It's not the same as me calling you on Google Meets and then live streaming it straight away as my first live stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that. It's not that. Like we had to make this. I think we are an hour late, somewhat. Yeah, we are streaming now for half an hour. So yeah, and you started talking about VR, and I think it's a great topic just to cover because I think virtual reality is one of those things which shows that when things are not specific and bound to one area, they are better and more tasteful, like more impactful, I guess. Like in VR, some experiences seem like games, but they are not. And some games actually seem like movies in which you act as well. And that's the thing with, I think, almost everything, not just VR. Like when you try to combine things which fit together, not like just combine everything and you get a pile of nothing actually. So when you combine the things that really work well with each other, you don't bound yourself to just one specific area. You get a better quality content and a better quality product overall. Doesn't matter. It's just artificial intelligence model or is it performance in the theater. But when you bind together some things, you might get a better outcome. What do you think about that? Like, what do you think about just combining, seemingly different things like science and theater, which are really different? Like,
I think that, I mean, I don't see that there's a much difference in theater and science
your
as a
mic
whole.
is gone. Yeah,
Sorry,
I can't hear you.
you can't or can?
Now it seems to be on.
You're good?
Give me a sec. Pom pom pom. Yeah, so I have the sound, but I can't really hear you.
We're good?
Oh, we're good. We're back.
Okay.
Cool. So combining different areas into one, science and artsy stuff like creativity and such.
Yeah, so what I meant that I don't see a much difference in science and art itself. I think they fulfill the same reason and the same purpose as a whole for us is just getting to know what's the existence around us and experience the nature, the world, and our existence itself. And both of these fields help us. One is maybe more objective, that we can calculate, we can research on it, and the other is more about the existential human perspective of social kind of a things. But I think combining these two things opens up a lot of space for creativity and also to guide on the perspective where the science could go and research and find new ways of the things. If we're going to talk about virtual reality in the sense, I wouldn't totally agree that the more is better. The more combinations, what you combine, it's a better thing. Sometimes less is more, obviously, but it depends on on the form of what we are doing. If we're just looking in the sense of saying that, okay, if our goal is to create a virtual reality which is substantial from reality that we're existing, and we want to fulfill it and say that, okay, we don't believe that the world is real and there's plenty of more things that is happening, that means on the core sense we want to trigger some of the senses that we feel,
Right.
or we sense at the whole. For example, what we see. So virtual reality on the sense that we can augment the visual perspective, what it is. But our reality is never only about visual. All the time we are touching something, we're feeling something. All the time we're hearing something, we're smelling something. And we have physical experiences, what is happening in our body. So when we try to build, for example, a true virtual reality in the sense, we need to then think of what kind of senses we can evoke from the people, from the audience. We can do visual, but if we see in pixels, we won't really believe that it's a new reality because it doesn't have the sense for us. You know, you still want to have this full HD kind of a thing, you know?
But that's the thing with virtual reality. You don't really need to have, sharp graphics to be immersed in it. The thing with since you have your pretty much full field of view as you have in your normal life, where you just put your hand here and you can see it, but it doesn't seem to, right? So that immerses you enough that after a couple of minutes, you feel immersed, and this is my new reality, and this is my life now. I'm gonna live in pixel land, and it's fine.
But this is also a thing. If you're saying that I will film you, and I know that how you look, and I will see you as a pixel, I know that that's, I don't sense the quality. If everything around me is created in pixels, as a Minecraft kind of a thing,
right,
then I feel that I'm in a new world.
Yeah.
Also, a combination of how you see it. So this is one of the perspectives, trying to find the ways where your reality and virtual reality coexists and finds, the senses from what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is, what do you hear and how do you hear? Naturally, we hear 360 all the time.
Yeah.
That if something happens, we can sense, okay, it's there that is happening, or it's over there. When we put our AirPods and listen to music, we know that it's happening only here.
Yeah, we have just two channel balance.
Yeah, so on the virtual reality, then we need to think that if we want to experience them, then we need to sense of the, how is the sound moving. And there's a lot of these different kind of things, then combinations of a lot of these forms, for example, from physical perspective, sound, visual things, from the artistic approach, what it could be, animations, filming, theater, musical instruments, everything. It's all about, what you want to do and what's even the theme, what you're trying to experience. If you're saying that I want to experience a virtual reality sitting in the kitchen, what's the ambitions, and there's another ambition that say, what I can't experience, for example, on a conscience level.
Yeah.
And what could be the surreal? Because virtual reality, at least for me, the ambition is I want to feel the surreal, the one that it's not, I can't, it's just something that blows my mind. So if we're saying that, okay, let's analyze dreams, for example, it opens up the space that I'm not looking at. If this is a pixel of this, not a pixel, then I'm saying, oh wait, my dream can be pixelized. It can be, transformed. It could be culturally active and all of these kind of mixtures and everything. So I think that's on the sense, it's just trying to find the ambitions, what you're trying to do. Because in some art forms, less is way better. But on some scales, if you're saying that this is the form that I'm reaching it, not involving some of the things is then basically bad. Then you don't have sense. And if we're talking about the combinations between the science and that, then the forms and the content contradicts with each other and finds new touchings, new ways, and new opportunities to spread out. That sometimes at the beginning you have no idea how it will end up.
Right, and that's mainly my point, is that if you combine the things like in a meaningful way, it's gonna increase the quality and it's gonna increase the possibility scope of your project. Because as you say, like, if you're really focused on one thing and you just, have these blinders and you just go, I need to use hypothetical reasoning, do assumptions, do a hypothesis, then test it, base that on previous research, and then I'm gonna be fine with whatever work I'm doing if you're an objective kind of person. And if you're a creative kind of person, I'll just try whatever, see what happens.
But even, I think the one of the core things for success in either of the ways, either you're objective or subject, is the curiosity. Are you open up, with this, where it will lead me? I can be truly objective with the decisions that I make, but am I curious, or where will I end up? Or I'm not curious. If I'm not curious, I will just say that, okay, this is close enough and I'm good. And you're not going to that other limit
Right.
that actually then impacts us.
Wanting to do stuff, like not knowing where you will end up, like
Yeah.
just doing a bunch of things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and then trying other things along the way.
Yeah, and being opening to trying, it's not. I don't think that the best thing is just if I visualize or I just say that this
Yeah.
is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And boldly, I'll just follow it. I
Yeah.
don't think this is the best approach because environment around us. That's why it happens that way. It changes us a
Yeah.
little bit. Either being open to what are the changes, or it's sometimes you need to be bold to reach something.
Whoa. You reached your face.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, I think I agree with that on you because the environment is dynamic and your goals should be dynamic as well. The things that you want now could be easily achievable in a couple of months even, but sometimes you just try to have dynamic goals, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Just not too strict, not too specific, just not vague also. Not totally vague. Like, I want to be happy, but you need to measure it. And I want to feel good, be healthy. So measure it somehow.
I think that even one of the things that I think it's really important to understand that all the ideas and everything that is happening around us, all the ideas, all the thoughts and everything is somewhere here flowing. It's about you. Does it go to your head, and does it make some action or just flows around there? But it's everything around here. You don't need to reinvent all of the things. It will reinvent itself when it reaches you.
Right.
And being open that if there's some changes happening, just be open to these changes and try to, push them forward. Okay, this kind of a crazy idea to make virtual reality, I don't know, some kind of a performance went in my mind, and that some ginger beard made some kind of a mixture inside of it, and it happened to be, I don't know, some kind of a dream in reality. So this is the transformation that it happened. Maybe it will end up, a thought of quarantine and you can't do some of the things. It went this idea that everyone wants to see an online performance because there was a lot of people thinking of it. Everyone was over here. To some of our heads, it went in, transformed in something, and we have a performance. To some of them, it just flew away. For that, some of them went in and they did some other things. It's, I think, just being a little bit open with this kind of a mystical perspective that that's everything's around somehow connected, and having this mystery of, just finding this way, it sometimes makes a little bit game. And I can see that you're very, very interested in that thought.
Yeah, the thing is, like, what I'm thinking is, sure, like, we don't really invent new things, we just take things from the environment, we, combine them in a thought, and then produce a new idea, a new invention, which is not really new, it's just recombined thing from the environment. I get that. I just don't really like the, mystical explanation of it, because if you just say to people that the ideas are floating somewhere around here, and then your antenna in your brain picks it up, and then you push a new idea to life and show it to people, I think that's bullshit. And I think that's the moment when people say you're just imagining stuff, And when you have like a nice, really simple example from life that you take an idea from nature, like flying. Okay, flying, you have birds, planes look like birds, If you connect the things from environment to the ideas that come up afterwards, I think that's a much better explanation, to that. But yeah, sure, I totally agree. We don't really make new things. We just remake the things that we have. But it doesn't mean it doesn't get better with remaking.
Mystical kind of a thing. It's not about, being a Buddha and, sitting down next to the tree or, enchanting everyone what is happening. I'm saying that sometimes feeling a little bit like you're in a movie and feeling the sense, that I'm just moved a little bit away from my head, that I'm somewhere here, and I'm just like randomly seeing, and I'm seeing then the mythical perspective that this is not a physical thing that I'm experiencing,
Right.
being a little bit, away from there. And this is, I think, that it encourages ourselves to find the curiosity that you're seeing in, looking at the butterfly and just like at the one point it's just flying. But when you focus on it, you see that there's some kind of strange, what's the shape of it? It's not, this kind of thing. You have the curiosity. It's a little bit mythical. Then you see that maybe, a dwarf is walking around there. It's this mythical things opens up yourself to curiosity or what it could lead in. It's not about, sitting and going to different religions and saying that you need to, to preach every, day to say, to meditate and find the ideas that comes into you and outwards. And it's not about that. It's about, the feeling of, feeling a little bit as a game or a movie, just to make yourself a little bit away to feel this mythical kind of a existence. And
right. So you touched a good subject. So we won't talk about religion, but the thing with religion is that in order to achieve quite a vague goal of something, depends on religion, you need to do specific practices, which are rituals. So you have a structure to achieve a vague thing. So my question to you is, do you think there's a structure to creativity as well? Like, can you be creative on demand, or can you induce creativity on demand?
Well, it depends, what do you mean by creativity? I think on some scale, you can be professional and create things.
Right.
You can do a video clip because you know how to build the structure of a story.
Yeah.
If you're saying creativity as an art form, then I don't believe that you can do, on demand.
But I guess
you can find yourself to feel something,
But the thing is, so you want to describe creativity, but I guess the best way of describing creativity is creating and producing are different things, right? Producing something and creating something, even though you can have the same outcome, is a totally different thing.
It's a different approach how you're doing it.
And creativity and creating something is something you do once, and production is more like a, full-scale production. You can do thousands and thousands of that thing.
Yeah. Just 1 second. My computer is almost charged out. One momento.
Sure. So, have we had any people watching this? Actually, we did. We don't really have questions, which is sad. But what can you do about it? Cool. Let's just see. Your bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. That's bad.
Okay. Sorry for being so unprepared for
Unprofessional.
Very unpredictable.
At least you dressed the part. Like I'm wearing a simple sweatshirt.
And I got the moonlight also.
That's your kitchen lamp.
No, it's not.
Sure, man. So, producing and creating. And by the way, you're a producer. You're not a theater creator. So, so you're the guy who should bring structure into that chaotic mess that you have there.
Yeah, that's a really easy thing to do.
Sure, I think so.
If we're talking on the global sense of what's production and what's a creativity, I think it depends, on the context of where these words are putting in. In the theater term, for example, producer, there are at least three types of producer. The one is a creative producer. That means that he's actually really involved in the content, that he actually creates some parts of, I don't know, for example, cinema producers that you can, that the director and a producer is the same person. He builds in the structure, but he also has the creative impact of what's the storyline going to be, what's, what is happening to all of it.
Right.
One of the parts is a creative producer. The second one is as a producer, as a production. That means how the performance is being built in. That means that you find spaces, you find where to participate, you find the structure of when the script should be finished, when the cast should be on, what's the rehearsals, what's the stage design going to be, that you're actually producing the content itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the distribution producer that actually, looks at where the productions could be distributed, on which scale. So it's a different productions in the sense.
Yeah.
I'm more working with creative producing. That means that I also are involved in this creating what the outcome should be and how to find the ways, of the content and how to build it and find the ways.
Do you? Yeah, like I get your answer, but it's really expansive. I guess the question that can be asked here: do you feel as a producer in the theater that you are the key person who is responsible that the actual performance happens, the actual product is produced, Because from my experience with living with you and working with you on the theater projects, actors, directors, pretty much anyone of the creative kind know only one thing, which is the deadline, and it's pretty much the same for everyone. Like, I work harder on deadlines as well. Don't get me wrong, but a deadline for me is a hard deadline. Like, a deadline is a deadline. And for a creative person, a deadline mostly is, just a date in a calendar when something should be done, and sometimes the start of the work. So don't you think like you are the one responsible for managing that, playing around with actual deadlines, making them quite earlier when we should be, just to make sure, that everything works out at the end?
Well, of course, you have your managerial games that you have, and just, to have, that some of the risk that might happen, you all the time you have them implemented in the sense.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a deadline for us sometimes is that we believe that there's a lot of deaths, so that you can be reborn after the red line. But of course, it's not. It depends on the scale. It depends, on the on the people that it's working. And I wouldn't generalize that, that a production of a deadline of something happenings. Usually, the case is at the beginning we don't know the deadline of the performance.
Right.
We create some of the parts, and at some point we say that, okay, this is going to be the premiere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 2 months, 3 months afterwards, depends, on the production, what is happening. And then the deadline is the deadline, because everyone knows that it's not about, me as a producer that I will need to talk with ministry or something else.
Yeah.
The audience starts to buy the tickets.
Right.
That means that people are waiting. It's not about us anymore. It's not about us agreeing on the deadline. We're already involving audience in that. And when the audience comes in, audience over this channel, then everything changes. Everyone understands that this is the place where we need to show and working on that. Of course, a lot of things happens during the time, but usually the case is that when the audience starts to being interactive in it, and the deadline becomes the really deadline.
But the question I'm asking is like, is it you personally who is responsible for the end product, like that it happens, not how it looks, as well, not fully at least, but just the fact that it either is or it isn't falls as a responsibility to the producer of the performance?
Yeah. My view is that that's double values of responsibility. Of course, there's the value and responsibility that I believe that comes together in theater. I think the most important thing is the most value that is given for producer is the director, and the biggest value added to the director is the producer.
Okay.
At least from my sense, that how I see. Of course, there's a lot of other people, actors that are on the stage, and there's big teams happening from different sides of it. But I think this is that if I'm working with some kind of a directors, that what they are creating, what the art is creating, how good of the quality is, that means that good I am. I'm only a producer producing some, maybe even I'm making good money out of it. But if the content is, on the average, then on the professional scales, I'm an average producer. If I manage to produce a really high-end artistic approach performance, that means that something happened, some decisions that I made working with them and to actually finishing this is value for me. And at the same time, when the directors are trying to reach for some new ideas of how they implement it, then you as a producer, you help to fundraise the people, you find the connections with some of the people that is needed, sometimes with the artists, sometimes with distribution channels, sometimes with the theater, sometimes with a lot of different people. But on the main sense, and that's why when you say about the responsibility, it's a division of it, because the artistic responsibility first comes to the director, which usually is the case, who builds the structure of the timelines of the rehearsals and everything. But also, the responsibility for the whole project, as a sense from the legal, financial kind of things, of course, it comes to mind, responsibility.
Right. So you are the most objective guy in the most subjective industry.
Well, I could be.
Right.
But
yeah, because I know the people you're working with, so just, yeah. But in my circle of friends, you're still the least objective guy, And that's the funny thing about you for me. Like, you're managing sometimes big and sometimes not so big projects. But some of them are really quite big, and essentially not that the size of the project is the issue, but the timelines of the project. Like the last performance that you did, your team had to write the script, I think, in 2 weeks, when on average it takes around 8 or almost half a year sometimes, and then adapt new technology, release that on YouTube, make the live stream happen, find someone who can work with sound on a live stream, work with the visual effects, because there's plenty of those, produce the visual effects. So when I think about it, it seems more like a job that I do, right? Just testing out the platform, checking for the bugs, talking with the developers, making some models if needed, changing the logic, and doing that on small scale deadlines. But when I talk with you, we talk about ideas, so I'm the guy who will say, well, I can sit on my balcony, watch my trees grow, see how the leaves changes, and then I know that there's seasonality and there's some cyclical behavior within the timeline, so it's the same in the data, and we can use that, to build models to predict even our lives, because, well, it's data as well. And you're the guy sitting there and saying, well, the ideas are floating here, and you just cherry pick the ones you like. Maybe one comes in your sleep, maybe one comes when you're just sitting on the toilet or in the shower.
Yeah. Well, on the sense, I think that maybe the approach to this thing is, sometimes we're looking at the tree, we see a tree, but we just use different words about it, but we just want to explain the tree, on the sense, and maybe I will say that on the sense that you say, this is seasonality and the data and everything. I don't know. I also know the data that, that there's 4 seasons, and that, when it's autumn, that, the leaves will be colored and everything. That's also a data, but also maybe I'll just move a little bit further from the thing that what's the tree, what does the tree symbolically mean, which I know that you have the same ideas.
Right.
On the sense of trying to be objective and subjective, Well,
Just don't try to be objective or subjective. Just be. If you need to create, if I'm doing a model and I see that my model is shit, right? But I see I have some additional data. Well, I'll try doing some feature engineering. Do I have hypotheses for each one of those features? No. No, some are quite bullshit hypotheses on those features. But some of them work. And I don't care. I wasn't doing that, by the way, before talking extensively with Darius a couple years ago when we first started discussing things. But now I do, because that's the thing when you meet people with really different opinions on some things about life. And as I said, I'm quite objective. I need to fulfill objective things, build logics, and Darius need to fulfill subjective things with objective means. So he needs to fulfill what's the quality of a performance? Well, how do you measure that? What the critic review says, well, it depends on the critic. It's vague. It's not objective at all. But you need objective forms of management to achieve a good subjective goal. And sometimes I need good subjective ideas which are floating in the air. What features should I use to build a good model? So,
but at the end of the day, I think that even from the subjective and objective part, what we really want to do is actually bring empathy towards the things that we're doing. Even it could be an objective truth, but if it doesn't have empathy, that we don't relate ourselves with that,
right,
means the goal isn't met. If we're saying that objective truth is that the earth is round, it is a thing. And if we don't bring empathy that, yep, this is the thing, that this is how the world is, and now we're just flowing in the circle, that's it, And if we don't meet this kind of a criteria that we say that, okay, I understand this and I appreciate it, I think that this is then the goal is met either from the subjectivity, either from objectivity, but the empathy is built up that we can, as humans, just connect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no empathy towards the thing, then I think the goal is not met. You can find really a lot of objective truth. What is a beautiful architecture?
Right.
You can find objective truth. Symmetry is the thing you can find, but if it doesn't relate with people that are walking around it and doesn't have the empathy towards that building, then it's just a piece of block.
Right. Yeah.
So that you can have both of these, but just getting the connection, I think this is one of the things. And it sometimes doesn't really matter that how much of objectivity or subjectivity is in there. Is it connecting with it or it's not connecting? Of course, some of the things maybe it's better not to be connected, but
yeah. So essentially, just do as the Buddhists do. Find the middle way. Find the middle way.
On the sense, even when we're just trying to be philosophical and smart around here, but I think at the end of the day, it's just like we want to connect with other people.
Right.
I'm working in the theater field, in the art field. We go, the connection that goes deeper beyond saying hi and hi, and trying to find the reasons and sometimes open up the emotional space or the mental space for people being a little bit more open with their hearts, with their minds and everything. And I think what you're doing with the objective thing is trying to give awards of the environment, how to understand the environment and get the connection with the environment together, that me and some other friends could just understand the reality that's happening with your objectivity, that we have the connection then towards there. This is an object, and we two connect going on that line. For the field that I'm working is just getting together with this kind of a thing. And both of these things that I think is really important. But at the end of the day, it's just we want to have this open relationship with with the people around us, that we can be open and trust one another, and finding this kind of then you got all these kind of mystical, objective, subjective, and
sure.
At the end of the day, we just want to have a chat, just like we are doing now.
Yeah.
Saying that, oh yeah.
And talking about that chat, it's almost an hour long. So, yeah, I totally agree with your last thought. Just trying to make sense of the world and feel safe within others. So,
Yeah, and at the end of the day, and then after all of this, when we have this kind of a connection, then we get all the other flavors.
a Happy Meal from McDonald's.
Have a meal from McDonald's, look at the kitchen lamp and saying that this is the moonlight. All
Sure.
this, all
Sure.
these beautiful things that is happening. Yeah.
Right. So, do you have any closing thoughts on this? Because it's an hour, and I think we should, cap it on that.
So I think the most important thing in the world is for people to be good and don't smell bad.
And with that said, we are finishing the first ever live stream, and it was nice. It was nice talking to you. It's sad that we can't really talk in the same room because of the pandemic, but hopefully we'll take off the lockdown soon and we can meet up.
Yeah, and I hope it's not the last, not the last stream from you. I hope I didn't kill everything around it, and the best of luck for this. And we'll see each other soon when the winter will be over.
Yeah, soon like in 3 months. Soon. Cool. Bye, Darius. Thanks for the podcast, I guess. Bye.
Cheers.